Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for being with us. Well, as you know, election season in Tennessee is in full bloom, and we attempted last week our first live program from a political event. It was in Wilson County at the Rally for Monty in Lebanon at the Farm Bureau Center. Excellent turnout, over 500 people. I don't know the exact count, but I'm gonna guess from what I saw between 500 and 600. So it was a huge success. Monty did a great job. Had a few other speakers, but none of them really topped Monty by any means. Monty's gaining momentum, or as I like to say, Monty-mentum. I realized that you, the viewers, were not able to hear everything clearly, and that the shots were not always lined up like they should be. Like I said, this was my first time at it, and there was some good, bad, and ugly to it. I don't know when we'll do another one, but we'll do a better job next time, and thank you for watching. It does have roughly 200 views when I looked last time, so some people did watch it, and I really appreciate that. All during this election in Tennessee, you will hear Republicans, whether challengers or incumbents, talk about how conservative they are and how much they believe in the Constitution and will defend it. Based on their comments, you would think our state government would be deep red. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You've all heard about the Islamification of our country, and Texas in particular, another supposedly conservative state that's been in the news a lot lately in reference to the Epic City and other things going on there. You have candidates here talking about it as well, as they should, but did you know our State Economic Development Council in Tennessee has been working with AMAC, which is the American Muslim Advisory Council, on digital literacy and encouraging refugees and immigrants to sign up for this state-sponsored program? Did you know the Nashville PD trains officers to understand Islamic sensibilities and now has added additional training for the LGBTQ, whatever is the latest crowd? Is there a chance we could have a Muslim run for mayor and win in Nashville? Why are these things being allowed, and what can, and should we do about it? For that and more, we are joined tonight by former New York police officer, now Tennessee citizen, and author of The Muslim Brotherhood, The Threat in Our Backyard, Kathy Henners. She also has a great blog called dailyrollcall.com. But first, a word from our sponsor, LifeWave, a unique product that uses light reflection to activate the body's own natural energy, supporting healing, improving performance, and combating aging without drugs or stimulants. Check it out, and we'll be right back.
Light, the energy of life itself. Since the beginning of time, light has sustained us, fueled our growth, and shaped the world. Even Einstein recognized that everything we are is made of light. But what if we could harness the light within us, not just to live, but to renew, restore, and rejuvenate? Introducing LifeWave X39, the first product in the world that activates stem cells using our body's own light. Backed by clinical research, multiple patents, and over 10 years of stem cell research, a revolutionary wearable light technology that unlocks the power of activating our own stem cells with a single, safe, affordable, non-transdermal patch that puts you back in control of how you look, feel, and perform. Unlike drugs or chemicals, X39 works naturally, awakening your body's ability to heal and thrive. It's time to unlock your full potential, restore your vitality, and embrace a healthier, more vibrant you.
Welcome back. Now to our returning guest and author, Kathy Henners. Kathy, thank you for being with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing fine. It's good to have you back.
Thanks.
Let's talk about our state's latest involvement with AMAC and why people should be concerned. And you may want to fill in everybody a little bit about the history of AMAC. I know you're more versed on that than you want to be.
Yeah. Well, they've been around for a long time. They started back in 2011 when the Tennessee legislature was attempting to propose an anti-terrorism material support bill. And at that time, they opposed it, obviously. They said that it was anti-Muslim and anti-Sharia, which had nothing to do with it. So they formed this Muslim Rapid Response Team. And out of that came AMAC and also was something else called the ACO. But AMAC, the American Muslim Advisory Council, has been around for a while. They originally started with the platform of building bridges with law enforcement and other government agencies, teaching them how, what Islam is all about. But now they're making inroads with state departments, and it just isn't good. But AMAC basically is a veiled version of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. We always kind of put those two together because they are. Whenever there's a problem, AMAC does reach out to CARE, and their executive director, Nihad Awad, who's Hamas, self-proclaimed Hamas, shows up in Tennessee. He's been here several times. AMAC has kind of left the original platform, and now they're all about social justice, and very anti-Semitic. They're kind of vile when it comes to that. They were part of the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, and what was the
Sanction.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, they're nothing what they used to be. The interesting thing is, though, that they've taken money from various grants from various organizations that are all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we know that their platform is basically the same as CARES. They talk about civil rights, civic engagement. They always use the word empower the community, countering Islamophobia, and training, educating the public about Islam. And so that's the little bit of background on them. They are not a good organization. They are funded by the likes of George Soros. The Proteus Fund had given them money. We found today that the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development has given them $168,000 for this digital literacy class. They've taken money from, it's called the Dan and Margaret Maddox Foundation. They took $36,000 from them. And there are other figures over the years they've taken other money from them.
So what is the purpose of this digital literacy course? What are
Well,
they?
they're saying, and there's the word empower. What they use the word empower the community by allowing them to learn how to have access to the internet. And they should be able to have their banking online, and they should be able to do all the things that everybody else does on the internet. And so what's interesting, though, is that they say at the end of the class, each student will be given a laptop. So I would assume that's where the 168,000, that's our state money, that's our taxpayer money, of course. That's
Yeah.
funding refugees. It's kind of interesting that when under Biden, when all these illegals were coming in, the first thing they were getting were cell phones.
Right.
And so,
Now
they're not-
Tennessee's going to one up them. We're going to give them computers.
Yeah, isn't that great? And so, and that we're paying for that as well, But it's a class that they're making these inroads with state departments, and I find that to be kind of dangerous. When they first started, they were very much involved with the Tennessee Department of Homeland Security. As a matter of fact, Gibbons, the head back then, Tom Gibbons had written. No, it wasn't Tom Gibbons, but
Gibbons was the last name. Bill Gibbons.
Bill Gibbons, yes.
Under the Bill Haslam administration. Guys, all this stuff started under the GOP in Tennessee. I mean, and you got Haslam. He was weak on it. Lee's been weak on it. You remember Lee, before he even took office, was meeting with AMAC. You remember that picture? I'm sure. I'm sure we could find that picture on your website.
Oh, it's yeah, and that was the backlash that we got on that was interesting. But yeah, 10 days after he was sworn in, there was a huge picture, and they do that for propaganda.
Right.
And so, but AMAC is not a good organization. They've got that relationship. They're basically, I would say they're an affiliation of the Muslim Brotherhood. A lot of their original members all have kind of a affiliation, I guess I'll say, with the Muslim Brotherhood. We know that Dawood Abu Diab was one of the founding members of AMAC. He is we found him with the Muslim Brotherhood's first political party here in the United States back in, it had to be like 2015, 2014. So him, and then a woman from Kurdistan at the time was Dros Koke, who had put out social media several times that she hated America. She hated
Right.
being called a new American.
The,
So these are the type of people
I'm,
that's
I'm
on
sorry,
AMAC.
the guy that you mentioned, and I'm sure I'll murder his name, but just go ahead and say his name again. I want to ask you something about him.
Dawood Abu Diab.
Is he not the guy who also was involved with starting TIRC, the Tennessee Immigrant Refugee
That's
Rights
right.
Coalition?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So he's got his hands into stuff that, we can talk about Turk too, because they're actually involved with the Metro Council or the Metro Police training. But yeah, he was part of the United States Council of Muslim Organizations, which the Muslim Brotherhood confirmed that as being their first political party. And I think what we're seeing here, people are paying attention to the greater picture of what Islam is. Now I'm just asking those same people to pay attention to these organizations, such as the American Muslim Advisory Council. Yeah. The woman that's the executive director of that, her name is Sabina Moyhuden. And just to put this out there, her brother-in-law is in Coffee County, and he's running for school board, Manchester City School Board. So this is how they're making inroads, and this is how it's becoming more dangerous. But AMAC is definitely, it used to be a Nashville problem. They now have opened up a chapter in Memphis. And so, this is something that we're seeing that they're not only doing well, we're actually allowing them to flourish and to grow. Right. And so, that's something that we need to start looking at, where their money's coming from. We only see a little bit of where their money's coming from. If we could ever prove that CARE or the Muslim Brotherhood is funding them somehow, right. We could shut them right down, and they need to be shut down.
But the fact that AMAC has links with CARE, you would think that would tell our state government, hey, these are probably not good people to give money to, right? I mean, that's kind of like a no-brainer.
Well, but they, Dave, we know plenty of legislators, you and I and some other people involved with, Daily Roll Call. They don't ever reach out to find out who these people are. Instead, they give them, well, for example, what was it, like 4 years ago, the state decided to give Catholic Charities $7 million. Yeah. So, that's a problem. And yet we're at their disposal. They know that, there's several of them that can reach out to us. Some of them have reached out in the past, but they don't do anything with that information. We give them everything. We give them names. We give them affiliations. And I don't know if it's just because they don't fully understand the scope of what we're talking about, Muslim Brotherhood. So many people hear the term Muslim Brotherhood and think, oh, that's over there. That's the Middle Eastern problem. It's been a problem here in this country since the 60s. And so, and they are bold. I mean, now they've just been empowered by us and our government, to further themselves, and they're doing fine, and nobody seems to want to follow the money track.
Yeah. We're worried about what's going on in Texas. You'll hear people talk about that, but they forget a couple of things. Number one, Yasser Qadi, one of the ringleaders down there, well, he was in Memphis for years.
Yeah.
Basically, laying it all out what they believed, which was obviously opposed to our Constitution, our way of life, and he was vocal about it. Nothing ever happened. We never treat them like the terrorists that they are. We just don't. We act, they have a right to do this, they have a right to do that. And, we just, not only do we not do anything, but then we have our state. Like I say, our state from early on has been, they've promoted this in a lot of ways. We mentioned earlier the start of AMAC. Well, let's not forget, and the name Samar Ali, that was back during Bill Haslam, his time frame, when he appointed her to the Department of Economic, actually the same council that is now giving these Muslims economic development. So Bill Hagerty at the time was the head of that department. And I don't know if he made the appointment or Haslam made the appointment, but I do remember that Haslam made the appointment. A lot of people were rightfully upset about it because she was known to be an expert in Sharia compliant finance. Some of her other relationships were known and were concerning. And Bill Hagerty, of course, at a First Tuesday event, accused everybody that was complaining about it just being a bunch of bigots, and then good old Steve Gill to the rescue for Samara Ali. Well, she's just the good old girl from Waverly.
Oh no.
So we have all these prominent idiots, elected and otherwise, who have promoted this stuff, allowed this stuff. It's just frustrating that we have so many idiots in our offices that are elected to serve, and they don't get it. They do not get it all these years after 9/11.
Oh no, and that's obvious down in New York City, which we can talk about in a minute. But when you talk about Samara Ali, her husband, it's called Lodestone, and he is very much involved with that type of economic development in the communities. So I can't help but wonder, especially because Samar was related to that particular State Department in the beginning,
Right.
Is there some kind of connection there as well? And so, it's the roots are so deep, and that's what's so concerning. And you talk about Yasser Qadi. I'm trying to refind, not long ago when I was researching Epic City in Texas, he had stated he is trying on a smaller scale in Memphis. So, if we allow something like this to happen, it's our fault. And we get what we deserve when we continue to, bring in these people that have no clue and have no interest in having a clue.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people still roll their eyes, when I start talking about Islam, it's like, oh, not again. You better take heed to this, because if you look at the other states that are having this problem and how far along they are, there's not a fence around Tennessee.
No.
And so one of the founding members of AMAC, her name is Zulfat Swara, a Nigerian Muslim. She was one of the original founders of AMAC, as well as being their treasurer. She still is a member, and their website, she still is a member of AMAC. We believe that next year she's probably going to run for mayor of Nashville. And, if people can't see what's happening in New York City, and again, there's not a fence around New York City. It isn't exclusive. This problem is not exclusive to New York City.
Yep.
She also was the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders here in Tennessee.
And she's on the council now. So it's not like she's unelectable. She's already on the council.
And she wins by, big margins. People love her. But she also has a relationship with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, two of the most vile anti-Semitic, anti-American women. And so, this is who we're going to allow to take office in our state. This is who we're allowing these groups to just flourish and then provide them with $168,000 so they can do a class.
Yeah.
And part of that digital class, it won't remain just part of, being about the internet. We know that they'll interject Islam 101 throughout this. New Americans don't have any clue as to, what to do. So Islam is something that they might be interested in after they get done talking to them. So it's really, it's maddening that we're allowing this to happen, and we're watching it happen, and we've been watching it happen for a long time.
Yeah. Now, I did talk to Monty Fritz about this, so he did send an email to Stuart McWhorter, who's head of the Economic Development Council, and he hadn't heard anything. He's of course kind of behind on his emails, but he said that he will follow up on this. But you're saying that you've already discovered that $168,000 has been spent, and
A lot of money.
that's a lot of money. But you mentioned before the show, you mentioned some others. Were those all private donations, or were those were some of them public-private partnerships?
I think most of them are probably private. I mean, George Soros, the Proteus Fund, everybody knows who George Soros is. They took money on several different occasions, as did Turk. The Dan and Margaret Maddox Foundation gave them $36,000 this particular time. What's kind of interesting about them, I don't know them, the Dan and Margaret Maddox Foundation. It was an old couple that was killed in 1998, and their whole idea was to help children and the environment. And they were not far left people whatsoever. They were just very concerned about what would happen to children and the environment for future. A woman took over. They both were killed in a boating accident in 98. And so this woman took over, and moved it out of Tennessee to Mississippi, which was against the law. Now it's back in Tennessee, but very much into the diversion and equity inclusion, or diversity.
Yeah.
And so that was being fought there for a while, but they're giving, when you look at some of who they've given money to, including the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition,
Right.
they're really being hammered. They're probably rolling over in their grave. There's another one called Healing Trusts, which is located in Nashville. They've given them a total, and I'm not sure of the time frame. It didn't give me a time frame, but $235,000 over a period of time.
Wow.
And then something called Civic Tennessee has given them $48,500. So we're talking quite a bit of money that, we don't know what the rest of that money is being used for. We know what 168,000 is being
Right.
used for, but we don't know about the rest. But I would imagine, because they're growing and their main thing is educating people about Islam and, combating Islamophobia. And, the other thing that I just was thinking about, they have that Muslim Day on the Hill in March, and they've been doing that for years.
Yep.
But reading a report that AMAC put out, they met with a lot of Republicans, or so they say. But I would love to know who those Republicans are that are, allowing CARE's affiliate to go in and sit down and talk to them. I'd love to find out who did that.
I want to hit Turk again real quick, and because
Okay.
you're mentioning the elected officials, I know that there was a bill a year or two ago, and it had to do with immigrants and well, it had to do with illegal immigrants, and I think it was Representative Powers, and there was I can't remember the number of the bill, but a mutual friend of ours told me about this. And Turk was in this committee meeting, and they had some concerns about the bill, and he assured them that, oh no, this will not affect the DACA. This won't affect the DACA kids. We're just talking about the other illegals here. So I'm like, and he's a Republican. So how the people on the Hill, the Republicans on the Hill, don't know what Turk is, don't know that in the past they've received money from Soros as well, don't know that they're far left, don't know that they were founded by an Islamist, and why they even listen to him, it just blows my mind. I mean, how can you be up on the Hill that long and be that stupid? I mean, you have to almost want to be that stupid. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating that those people are elected over and over, and they never seem to learn, or they just don't care. And I'm not sure which one it is.
I don't know. I would like to think that they care about the state that we live in, but I would say it's willful ignorance for sure.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for that. There's just too much information out there. We've got too much information that would be very handy,
Yeah.
but I think they're just not interested, because then they have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I have met with some state representatives regarding textbooks and vouchers and things like that. And, it doesn't seem to ever quite go anywhere. And I think it's because they're not interested in, then they're going to be the bad guy. They're going to be the Islamophobe. They're going to be the bigot and all the other names that go along with that. And is that really what's important, or, saving our state?
Right.
And so if we do get, there were several Muslims elected. I want to say it was over 100 throughout the country. We don't have many in the state of Tennessee yet.
Right.
But I think if, we continue to allow this to happen, we're in trouble. And I tell people, you don't even really have to look overseas anymore. You don't even have to look at the UK or Europe in general about what's happening with the Muslims. Look in Texas and in Florida, and certainly Michigan, and Minnesota. And yet people it's a religion. And I'm trying to say it's a political ideology. It's a political movement.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with religion. And as a matter of fact, when you look at and I'll just say this real quick, Bill Warner's wearing off on me, I think, but I've been looking at some of his things, and so we have the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith, which is the trilogy, right?
Right.
So 14% of that is about Allah. 86% is about Muhammad. So, where's the religious part of that? If only 14% is about their God
Right.
and the rest is about the prophet, I'd say that's a problem,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
that when you're saying it's about the prophet, that's a lot of that is how to deal with us, the infidels, the
Yeah.
non-believers, not
Right.
for how they become, better spiritually, but how they deal with us,
Yeah.
and basically how they conquer us. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And
That's
they're
what their
doing
plan
it.
is.
I mean, they are doing what they said they're going to do. And now there are some that are making statements on, on the internet. You can see it all over the place. That yes, they are here to conquer. They're not here to coexist. But those people are always looked as usually men. They're the ones that are always looked at like, oh, they're the fringe. They're the extremists. They're the radicals. And you and I have talked about it before. There is no such thing as radical Islam or a
Right.
radical Muslim.
Yep.
There's no such thing. Islam is Islam.
Yep.
And so, I think people are awakening. I see a lot more interest in it and a lot more talk about it now than we did several years
Oh
ago
yeah.
when we were first starting to do this.
Yeah. Well, you would
And
never
so,
in our U.S. Congress or U.S. Senate. I mean, other than Michelle Bachmann, she would be
yeah,
the only one who would say anything. Now you have Senator Tuberville. You have several. You have Chip Roy. You have several who
yeah,
are very open about it that it's incompatible and it's a threat. And within our own state, within Tennessee, Andy Ogles, give him credit, he has spoken up on this issue. Um, as far as the candidates running for office now, the only one that really sticks out in my mind, other than Andy is, I mean, Monty Fritz gets it. Our other two gubernatorial candidates don't get it. They don't have a clue. Okay,
no, they don't.
and they've been around long enough to know what is going on. But Monty's the only one that's addressed this. Matter of fact, and I know it hasn't gone anywhere, but he did send a letter to Governor Lee a while back encouraging him to declare CARE in similar organizations. He mentioned AMAC because he realizes the similarities there in Muslim Brotherhood, to declare them as domestic terrorist entities within the state of Tennessee. And haven't
Well,
heard
they did
anything
it.
back from the governor, but at least we know
Oh,
he recognizes it. And if he gets elected, then he will do something about it as much as he can.
and I don't think people understand that it is a threat. That they're not here to coexist. They're not here to live side by side with Christians and Jews and anybody else. That's the problem, and it isn't the religious aspect that I'm worried about. It's the Sharia aspect that I'm worried about. Their law. They don't believe in man-made law.
Right.
They believe in everything comes from Allah. And so I think that people need to not understand that this is a national security threat. These people that are running for office are doing it for a particular purpose, because once they have enough, large numbers of politicians that are Muslims, they can effect change.
Yep.
And then you'll start seeing Sharia law. We're already seeing Sharia law, in a lot of the schools in Nashville. This past year, when I think it was Valor Academy, was the one that was allowing Muslim students to pray in the school. And they even went and set alarms. They would set off bells when it was time for them to pray. You didn't hear about that?
I
It was,
remember it now. I'd forgotten about that. I didn't know it was
but
Valor Academy, though.
they're trying to get, pork products removed from the, from menus in hospitals and schools. So that alone should tell you, Jews can't eat pork, but they don't say you can't,
Right.
So Muslims say they can't eat pork, but either are you, so that's where the Sharia, component comes in when they tell you, well, if we can't do it, you're not going to do it.
Right.
And so I don't think people grasp that. And the religious aspect is so far, yes, it's under the First Amendment that we have, freedom for religion and things like that. But they don't care about the Constitution. They use it. It comes
Absolutely.
in handy for them,
Yeah.
but they don't believe in the Constitution. It's antithetical to everything that they believe. So,
They're
just keep a
dedicated to
lookout.
overturning it. That's what they're dedicated to. Because
Yes.
Sharia and the Constitution are totally incompatible.
Yeah.
Totally
And,
incompatible.
and Mandami is a prime example of, I believe, how this Zulfat Swara, the woman that's going to run next year for mayor, most likely, When you look at their platforms, when you put that side by side, his platform and her platform, and it's like they had the same person writing it, because it's the same stuff. It's, free this and free that, and equity is very much involved in it, and diversity, the whole nonsense. But he's not exclusive. He just happened to have won a position of the largest, most important city in the country, basically. It's where our financial districts are. I mean, it's a huge responsibility. And this knucklehead, he is a jihadist. There's no doubt about
And
it.
a communist. It's that you talk about the epitome of the Red Green Alliance. That's Mandami. He's the epitome of it.
And the whole thing with the Democrat socialist, let's call them what they are. They're communists.
Yep.
And so many young people are falling for this free stuff, but what they don't realize is you'll never own anything.
That's right.
And that's what Muslims are all about that. And I think it's very interesting how that Red Green Alliance has really, really come to the forefront right now. I think people always looked at it like, oh, that will never happen here, or but it's here.
It's happening.
When you've got them openly saying abolish prisons, abolish the borders and things like that. Are you kidding me? We saw what that was like from Biden for 4 years. But it's up to us, it's up to us Americans to do what we got to do. And if it comes to fighting in streets, then so be it. But I don't know that we'll.
If we had strong leaders in our state, I mean, not to mention our federal government, but in our state, if we had strong leaders with common sense who weren't cowards and who were willing to say, hey, you know what, we're not putting up with this. We're not tolerating this. And did everything they could to discourage not only illegal immigration, but immigration of any Muslim here. I mean, a state could make people feel very unwelcome if they decided that's what they want to do. I mean, we have crackdowns on other type of activity. We crack down on gangs, which is a good thing. Yeah. Why wouldn't we crack down on Islam, something that wants to destroy the whole society, who wants to totally make our Constitution a moot point, and they want to rule us through Sharia law. Now, speaking of law, we have some issues with our metro law enforcement as well, don't we?
Yeah, this drives me crazy. They just came out with it's called mobile diversity training, where the cadets are going out and visiting, that we know of, 3 different organizations. The first one that they go to was called, it's a Play Nashville, which is a gay transgender bar. So the police have to go there for,
For what?
It's required training. Well, I guess that's my question. Why are we sending police officers into a gay bar to learn what? To learn about gays? Or, I understand, they're disenfranchised and they're disgruntled about the way they're treated. I don't know of any gay organization that's being oppressed. No. If anything, they're certainly thriving.
Right.
But I find it really interesting that Metro Nashville Police is allowing this. They certainly have gay officers. It's a gay officer, a lesbian officer that's, promoting this whole idea of going to a gay bar. But I guess my question is, you're taking time away from training that people complain about all the time, that we're aggressive or that we don't know how to, de-escalate problems. So, instead, let's go to a gay bar and listen to the trans and the gay people tell us how mad they are at society. So that's just stop number 1. Stop number 2 is the Islamic Center of Nashville, and probably with AMAC, but they've been doing that for a long time. The past police chief always did that too. He always had the training.
And what does the training consist of,
Well, as far as the Muslims go, it's Islam. It's called Islam 101. And so, but when they walk into the mosque, they're required to take their shoes off. They have to succumb to Sharia law. You're coming into their house, so you will do by their rules. And I think that, no part of a police officer's uniform should come off at any time. I'm sorry. So here we go with the Muslim training.
Yeah,
And
usually
then
if they're taking parts of the uniform off during the day, they're probably doing something they shouldn't be doing and getting in trouble, right? Now
yeah,
now they're somewhere that they shouldn't be going, and we're encouraging them to take parts of their clothes off.
absolutely. And then the last place is with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, which is amazing to me because here we have police officers going to where the organization calls for the dismantling of police, or at least the defunding of police to a point, certainly the abolishment of another law enforcement agency, ICE, and criminal justice reform. Why are we sending police officers who have chosen this noble career into an organization that tells them how bad they are, and how they want to make changes and abolish ICE and get rid of police and this and that? It makes none of this training makes sense to me. We need training. We need good training to be good police officers. You need to know your community, yes, but we don't need to understand every single thing about that community. I don't agree with that. We need to understand their language. They should, that's something AMAC should be teaching instead of digital literacy.
Right.
How about teaching the new people, the new Americans, how to respect law enforcement, how to do what they tell them to do, rather than say, "Oh, lawyer up immediately" or "call CARE."
Yeah.
These are things that the mayor and also, any of these organizations need to address to the people that, are being taught. How about teaching them respect and what the rules are and what the laws are?
Right.
It amazes me that we're taking it down a notch. We're bringing them down a notch by sending them to this training. Yeah. And then they'll complain that the police are aggressive, or they don't know how to de-escalate, or they don't know how to do anything. And then that's a problem.
Well, two things here. Number one, the police are supposed to enforce the laws, not just the laws of the city, but the laws of the state.
Yeah.
That's one of their main functions. And then number two, I'm sure that at least some of our state tax dollars are going to Nashville. I mean, I sincerely doubt that everything in Metro is raised by Metro. I'm going to be willing to bet that there's some state money there. There's at least probably some grant money for law enforcement. So those are, I would say, I'm betting there's state dollars that are going to this garbage as well, not just Nashville, which is bad enough.
Yeah. No, I would be willing to bet. I mean, we already see, 168,000 going to AMAC for digital training.
Yeah.
So I would love to see, how much money is being spent. They have to do this course. It's over 8 hours, but it is a mandatory course, part of the curriculum to get out of the academy. But somewhere along the line, another 8 hours is being cut from something else.
Right.
That's what, and I'm sure the police chief will say, well, no, they've added time onto that. But, they have to have certain hours for post-certification. So, what did they take away to give 8 hours of garbage?
Yeah.
And that's all it is. I'm sorry.
Eight hours of indoctrination.
Right. I don't think we need to know every single thing about the culture. I worked in a neighborhood. I worked for 21 years in an all-black neighborhood. We had Spanish people. We had men from Yemen. We weren't forced to learn how to speak their language or how to understand their problems or how to, kind of bow down to them, if you will. If they broke the law, we handled it the way we were supposed to handle it.
Right.
But I don't think that we were ingrained in their culture or their beliefs. And that's exactly what's happening to these cadets. And I just don't think it's acceptable. And wait till Zulfat Sawara, if she becomes mayor, waiting to see what will happen to not just the police, but probably a lot of state agencies.
Yeah.
It'll be a disaster. That's for sure. So
imagine, I hate to think it, but I'm already hearing that it's in some of in parts of New York, and I'm sure it's in Michigan, Sharia patrols.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with the little, with the Arabic logo now on the patch. It isn't just the American flag anymore.
Yeah.
All people have to do is go on YouTube and look up Dearborn, Michigan.
Right.
Yeah. One of their last, it wasn't a holiday, but it was something. They had a parade, and there were thousands of Muslims in the street. Every person that's elected to the Dearborn government is Muslim. And so, that used to be a Polish, Catholic, Christian type city, and they've all moved out, and now it's Muslims. And don't think for one second that it can't happen in this state, because they're already picking at it.
Yeah.
They're already here, and they don't have anybody to say, get out.
Yeah.
And so, this is what we're going to be facing. And if people are okay with their daughters having to wear hijabs or burqas down the road, then, that's what your choice is.
Yeah.
And we get what we deserve at this point,
Well, and another thing people forget, they win the war of the womb everywhere they go. I mean, if you look, a lot of the things that have happened in Europe over the last 20 or 30 years just has to do with birth rate, because they come over there and they have 5, 6, 7, whatever, how many kids, all on the dole, by the way, or most of them. And then the native populations, they're not even having enough kids to replace their population. Now, it's not quite as bad here, but it's pretty bad. It's still inverted. It would not take that long with the current birth rates of the native population versus the birth rates of the illegals and other, any of the Muslims and other illegals that come here. It wouldn't take any time to basically win that war of the womb, and then we're done.
Well, they've done it in Europe. I mean, when you look at the numbers in Europe, like you say, we're doing 1 child per their 8 child. And so you can't win with that, and then that's a very big possibility here, because they don't practice birth control, because Allah will take care of as many kids as they have. And so I see it a lot in the Black community. They just, they'll have 6, 7, 8 children. And so this is how a culture is basically erased. And, they talk about, all you hear the buzzwords, Christian nationalists and white supremacy and all these things. But yet, they say that about white people, but yet you have your other cultures that we're being forced to accept and to tolerate. And yet the very foundation that we were founded on is up in the air at this point, because our culture doesn't matter. Our culture is offensive to people.
Right. Well, if we have a white supremacist society, then we are failing miserably for allowing what we've allowed to go on for the last 20 years. So it's ridiculous, and we better wake up, or we're going to lose our country. Whether it's 10 years, 20. I mean, I don't even want to think about what our country is going to look like in 10 years.
I can't imagine, because it's looking pretty bad right now, And if a Christian nationalist, I'm proud to be a Christian and I love my country. If that makes me a Christian nationalist, then I guess
I think that's really what they're getting at. Anybody that's a Christian, anybody that loves their country, oh, well, you're a Christian nationalist. That's just insane. That's just more war of the words that the left is used against us, and they use it successfully, because most people don't think about it, and they're, oh, well, I don't want to be something that the other side thinks it's bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend the left. It's just stupidity and cowardice. We got a lot of that these days.
There we go.
So, it is, as I said, election season. So what are, as far your concerns as far as this election, and any advice to the viewers, any recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a Monty Fritz supporter. I have met Monty on a few occasions.
Yep.
I believe in everything that he says. I don't think he's an extremist, as some people on Facebook, and social media call him. I think, when you have very passionate, ideology, and he cares about this country, and it's, he's very biblical and he's very constitutional.
Yep.
And so with those beliefs, people are calling him extreme. It's just that he has passion. And I think that's what we need in this state. We don't need Marsha Blackburn.
Nope.
Marsha's been around way too long. And the one thing that bothers me about her, she was elected to do a position and she chose to go one up, if you
Yeah.
will. Like, oh, I don't want to stay there. I want more
Yeah.
power, more money, more greed.
And there's no way that she didn't know she was going to run for governor in 24.
That's right.
There's no way.
And so what
Nobody
a
believes
slap
that.
in the face, to the people that, and John Rose, I've seen him enough. I've met him a couple times. He's weak. I find
Yeah.
him to be just weak.
Just another weak man. He's another
Right.
establishment man who's weak, like most in the establishment, like most
right.
in the Republican establishment. Now, that's not saying anything good about Democrats. They're all communists, okay? Just in case anybody doesn't understand that. They're all communists, okay?
Yeah.
And if you're a man and you're a Democrat, you're suspect. You can figure out what suspect means, okay? So, but that's the problem, is we have accepted all these weak men, the John Roses of the world. And I got the anybody but Marcia mentality to agree, but if your answer is John Rose, that's a terrible answer, especially when you could actually elect a real man like Monty Fritz, who
Yeah.
says what he means and means what he says.
Saturday I went to see him at a meet and greet in Tullahoma, and he had said, it's time for the men in this state to be men. And he was calling for the men to act like men and to be a man. And so I think the politicians need to step up and be a man and do what they have to do. But it all comes down to the same thing. I think it's, they don't want to lose their the constituents that may think that they're a little far off left, or I just think that we need to get back to basics, and that's Monty's whole thing is, as far as education, we need to get back to basics. Stop raising kids that are confused about what sex they are, or if they're a dog or a cat, and get back to the biblical principles, which that's what this country was founded on, not Islam.
Right.
And so I think he's very strong and very passionate about what he believes. And I do believe that's who we need to run this state. I fear, there's a lot of other issues besides Islam. I get it. That is what I believe, that it is a threat. And I believe he would be the only one to defend this state against the Islamic threat.
Yep.
And so, I fully endorse Monty Fritz.
Yeah.
I think he'd be fantastic.
I agree 100% on that and many other issues in regards to what our state needs. Now, obviously, a governor's not a king, so we have to elect good legislators. I mean, we have to elect legislators who are, not afraid to say the truth, not afraid to be bold, and not put their finger up in the air and see, what's popular or what,
Yeah.
hey, are the guys going to go? No, hey, they're going to stand up. We need more of those at all levels, to include county level. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it starts at the county level. It starts in the counties themselves, and then, goes right up the ladder. And that's what we need. We have a strong president. I mean, he's not, I'm certainly not happy with every single thing he does. And I'm sure people aren't happy with everything that Monty says.
Right.
But the overall job that they will do, I believe, is pro-America, is pro our state.
Yeah.
And pro-Americans, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. So,
Absolutely.
Anybody who's on the fence, research them all.
Yeah.
But I definitely say research Monty. I think you'd be very happy with your choice with him. He's got to win. We need him.
Absolutely. I think, like I say to the crowd, that's anybody but Marcia, or really it's anybody but Ward is what they mean, meaning Ward Baker, their campaign
That's
manager.
true.
That's what
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to. But anybody that's on that thought, with John Rose, if you were to elect John Rose, okay, might not be quite as bad, maybe not. But what have you really gained? I mean, or neither one. It's kind of like, okay, we're not going to drown in the middle of the river. We're going to drown 5 feet from the side of the river. You don't accomplish anything. You still drowned. We have to have somebody to break us out of what we've allowed to happen over the last decades, to the weak leaders, to all the compromised people, all the people with no principles, which, hey, guys, that's 95% of our government, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's very few up there I have respect for, and I know several of them, okay? And some of them I used to respect, and I don't respect them much anymore, all right? Because
Yeah.
I've seen their true colors, and it's all kinds of ugly, as far as I can tell.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we kind of hit on this a minute ago, but overall, from the time you got here, and you got here, what, 2012, thereabouts, to Tennessee?
Yeah, 2011. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you feel better about how many of the average people recognize the threat versus what it was like when you first started? Do you think
Absolutely.
more average people recognize it?
Yes, I do. I certainly do. And I think what's happening around the world, certainly what's happening in New York City and, some of the other states, Michigan, Minnesota, I think people are awakening to the fact that, wait a minute, these are people that don't want to assimilate and certainly don't want to understand our values and principles and laws. And I do believe people have seen that and are awakening. And I'm very proud of those people that finally are looking and not just listening to like us, but are actually doing the research, are actually reading the trilogy. It isn't just about the Quran. The Quran is nothing. It doesn't teach you how to be a good person. There's no golden rule in Islam.
Right.
So, more and more people are electing to sit down and understand the hadiths and what they mean, because that's where you find the answers there. And the reliance of the traveler, which is classic Islamic law. When people start looking at that saying, oh my gosh, that's true. They do this to people.
Right.
And so I am seeing, and I'm very happy to say that, that there's more and more people that are into what we believe. And so I think it's a good thing. And I think, but a lot more have got to go there. A lot more get off the religious part of it, because it's not. Yeah. And if we could prove that, that could be the downfall of all of them, if we could prove that it's not a religion. Yeah. But yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a death cult from hell. So if you consider that a religion, I guess it's a religion. But, and as far as that study goes, I would say the quickest guide is Bill Warner's Sharia Guide for Non-Muslims. I mean, it's a little thin book, but it's got so much good information on it. And if you just read that, you'll know, wait a minute, this is something we need to be aware of. This is something that's dangerous, and this is something we need to stop from happening here. And, of course, your book, you can still get your book, right? Muslim Brotherhood in Your Backyard. That's right. That's still on your website, dailyrollcall.com.
Yes, sir. And it's still available on Amazon.
Yeah. And for those of you who maybe have never been to the site, or if you're new to Tennessee, how long have you had that? You've had that site, what, 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Great website. If you want to look up anything about the Islamists here in Tennessee, whether it's AMAC, Turk, Jerusalem Fund, Samar Ali, anything having to do with the Islamist threat in Tennessee, it's on this website. A lot of great articles, a lot of good articles on illegal immigration, articles on our legislature. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. So it's a good resource, and it's not like you don't necessarily put a new article every week, but there's still a lot of good and relevant information on there. So I'd encourage everybody, especially if you've never been and or if you're new to Tennessee, to go to that website. Hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate that, and it's appreciate what you do, and look forward to seeing you again, and we'll have you back on before too long.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave. It was always good being with you.
You take care and have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Guys, I'm going to do a little bit of political commentary. I know that's hard to believe that I'd want to do that, but I'm going to do a little bit of that in reference to the governor's race and some other important state races, as well as the SEC races, and why these things matter. And so, hitting back on the governor's race, like I said, we have an opportunity here, in my opinion, by electing Monty Fritz to change the equation there in Nashville. Now, like I say, he can't do it by himself. Okay, but you know what? One guy with conviction, with backbone, with facts can make a difference. And especially from the bully pulpit, because remember, the governor in Tennessee is not a strong position like it is in a lot of states. In a lot of states, the governor is hard to override. He's pretty simple to override here in Tennessee as far as the legislature goes. But if you got somebody there that's willing to call out your legislature when they're doing things that are wrong, immoral, and or unconstitutional, and they do them all the time, when you got somebody who's willing to take it to the people, willing to expose who's doing what and why, that makes a difference, okay? That can have an impact. And especially somebody there that's there for the right reason. He's not there for himself. He's there because he wants to see things done the right way. And so that's very important. So I think we really shortchange ourselves, obviously, if you vote for Marcia, but even, we got to have John Rose to stop Marcia. That's garbage thinking, just totally garbage thinking. Vote for somebody that will really make a difference. Vote for Monty Fritz for governor. Now, there's other, like I say, important races. State House, we got Will Bolton running against Mark Cochran. I don't remember the district, but that's an important race. Mark has apparently become another one of the establishment types, and Will is another strong-willed guy that speaks his mind and is right on the issues. So that's somebody to look at. We've got several good candidates. So look, especially if any candidate that is running, and I'm focusing more on the states than I am the federal level. I really think the only way ultimately to fix the country long-term is to have good state government and that's willing to stand up. And so you have to get good people in those offices. John Gentry's a very constitutionally minded guy running in District 45. That's somebody you should look at. And I'm not gonna name anybody and everybody, but I'm just encouraging you to look at those races, look where they stand on the issues, look where they stand on the Second Amendment. Look where they stand on spending, look where they stand on, hey, our state constitution, it's not just something we take an oath to that doesn't mean anything. It's something that we're supposed to uphold. So look at those other state races. SEC. Now, SEC, when I say that, most people think I'm talking about the, the SEC in terms of football. No, the SEC races at our state level, they're on the ticket. They're on the ballot, and our state GOP has an SEC, okay, and it's the State Executive Committee. And it's the State Executive Committee, what they do for the party is they kind of set the principles for the party. They set the rules for the party. Everything to, okay, how often you have to have voted as a Republican before you could run as a Republican, for instance. Now, SEC has been a problem over the years. There's been a lot of inconsistency, but there are some good people in the SEC. Got Tess Robbins right here in Henry County. Got Chris Morris. He's a good one. Cindy Miller. Good Lord. Terry Nicholson. And there's others, okay? But these races are important. These guys kind of set the standards for the GOP. And I know it's been a problem in the past. And like I say, a lot of that has to do with inconsistency. But if you're going to attempt to fix the party, you have to have a strong, constitutionally minded and conservative SEC. That has to be the majority of your SEC. It's not the majority right now. We have probably more conservative members in the SEC than we've ever had, but it is not the majority. So if you want a party with more principles, and if you want a party that comes up with and creates consistent rules for who can run as a Republican or who can do this or do that as a Republican, if you want that, then you got to elect good people. So figure out who's on the ballot in your district for the SEC and figure out the good ones and vote for them. Okay, don't just ignore that one. It is an important position that a lot of people don't know anything about. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Once again, thank you for helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. That's a very important milestone for us, and thanks to everyone who has subscribed. Our show next week will focus on the upcoming statewide elections. We may or may not have a guest. If you want to know more about Monty, you can go to his website, fritzfortn.com. Click on the platform and see where he stands on the issues. He also has YouTubes on there. Okay, there's the top 10 short YouTubes that he's done on the different topics. He has several events in the Memphis area this week and will also be speaking at the First United Pentecostal Church in Lexington, Tennessee located at 9491 U.S. Highway 412 West. That is July 29th. That's this Wednesday, 7 p.m. Take time to check out the other shows brought to you by West Tennessee TV by going to westtennesseetv.com or myparishtv.com. You can find the links to the Mike Weatherford Show and Sportscast with Jeremy Buckaloo. Tomorrow, Mike welcomes Jeff Fuller from Fuller Strong Outdoors, fulfilling his daughter's dream of helping the ill and handicapped. Next Sunday on Sportscast, it's all about personal training. Join in on the Expert Roundtable with Jeremy and his guest experts. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.